Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to Radio Strong Style. Radio Strong Style is a New Japan Pro Wrestling fan podcast. This is a podcast for New Japan Pro Wrestling fans by New Japan Pro Wrestling fans. I will be your host. My name is Disco Stu Suzuki. On tonight's episode, we will be going over news such as the All In press conference and on ticket sale. And we will also be talking about new pieces of merchandise that will be available soon. We will also run down the Wrestling Dontaku 2018 cards that happened on May 3rd and May 4th in Fukuoka, Japan. And then we will look forward to the Best of the Super Juniors 25 tournament and the matches that have been announced for Dominion. But before we begin, I must introduce my co-host, broadcasting from parts unknown, man about town, Tony Tiger Mask. Tony, how are you doing this evening?
Great.
Tony, why don't you tell the people at home how you got into watching wrestling and specifically how you got into watching New Japan Pro Wrestling?
How you doing out there, everybody? I got into watching professional wrestling in high school. WCW, the Monday Night Wars were, going hot and heavy at the time, the NWO. But on those shows were also, Yuji Nagata, Liger, I can't even name all those guys. But, Bischoff was bringing in the international talent, and I liked those guys, and I started following them through the Pro Wrestling Illustrateds and the wrestling mags of the time and just keeping tabs on them. Mostly I couldn't watch much. I wasn't much of a tape trader, but I kept tabs through the magazines until with New Japan World coming out and, joined a couple of Facebook groups, and I've been following ever since then, as watching it now that it's much more accessible than it was in years past.
All right, perfect. At the beginning of every show, we like to go over the news, and we'll start this news with the All In show. And the All In show is happening on September 1st in Chicago, Illinois. And we've got a couple of things that are happening on Friday, May 11th, online at 1 p.m. Eastern. We will have a special announcement. We don't know what that special announcement is. On Sunday, May 13th, there will be a press conference at 2 p.m. Eastern. That will be at the physical Pro Wrestling Tees store in Chicago, Illinois. And then the same day, Sunday, May 13th, at 4 p.m. Eastern, the tickets will go on sale. Now, so far, the talent that has been announced has been Kenny Omega, the Rainmaker, Kazuchika Okada, the Young Bucks, Cody, Jay Lethal from Ring of Honor, Stephen Amell from Arrow on the TV show. We have Hangman Page from Ring of Honor, Marty Scurll, and then you also have Tessa Blanchard and the Lucha Brothers, which is Phoenix and Pentagon Jr., and also Joey Janela. And announced just today was Matt Cross, who is also known as Son of Havoc on Lucha Underground. And so how are you feeling about All In right now, Tony?
I'm excited for it. I think it's going to be a great show. I mean, they picked a good location with Chicago, good venue. So I'm excited for the show, and I hope those guys have all the success that they've worked real hard to achieve. So the one good for them.
The one thing I've noticed about this, the date of this press conference that's happening in Chicago, is it coincides with an event that's a wrestling event that's happening in Chicago, which of course is the Ring of Honor War of the Worlds tour, which is a co-branded tour with Ring of Honor and New Japan Pro Wrestling. New Japan Pro Wrestling and Ring of Honor, of course, have a working relationship where they send, if they're going to send like a young lion on excursion, they send them to Ring of Honor, or they send them to CMLL. So there's certain companies they have relationships with. So
and they've been doing War of the Worlds for quite a few years now, right?
Yeah, a few years. So this is always like a big tour because everybody knows like you can go to see the Ring of Honor, which is also always a good show, but you're going to get all the New Japan guys. And the May 13th is the date that they're having an event in Chicago with War of the Worlds. So all the New Japan guys are going to be there. So if they're going to announce a bunch of New Japan guys, saying like right now the only like full on New Japan guy that they've announced, I mean, of course, Kenny Omega, but they've also announced Kazuchika Okada. So I would assume we're probably going to get like a big announcement, like maybe all of Los Ingobernables de Japón is going to be there, or other members of Chaos or other members of the Bullet Club. To me right now, I'm a little underwhelmed by the card announcement. I know there's a lot of buzz in the wrestling community about this show. Like everybody wants to go there. There's going to be like a whole like a kind of a mini convention, like wrestling convention that's like built around it, and like certain podcasts are going to be there, and I'm sure there's other like wrestling things that are going to be there. But to me, I think they need to announce a lot more New Japan guys, because we're probably not going to see a big name like a CM Punk or a Daniel Bryan. So I would expect some big news, at least on the New Japan front, at this press conference.
Well, how much do you think that they're trying to really go for that indie WrestleMania kind of vibe? Because I feel like if you're really trying to go for that indie WrestleMania kind of vibe, you have to have the New Japan guys on the card. Like at least the big names, the Okada, the Tanahashi.
I think 100% that's their goal. Like if you're going to have it's like a huge wrestling event that's not based around WWE's WrestleMania. Because, everybody can just show up at WrestleMania weekend and do your little event, and you have the whole wrestling world as far as like the wrestling, like the hardcore wrestling fandom is there in town, and they're going to want to see these events. But you're trying to build an event that people are going to fly into. Like you're doing it in one of the bigger wrestling cities in America or in the world, Chicago. I mean, it's a huge wrestling city, and people are, we both know people personally that are going to like fly in or drive in to Chicago, that they're going to go to this event. But so we got that to look forward to in the coming days. And then we'll go into some other news here. Being the Elite. So if you're a New Japan fan, you should be on YouTube. You should be following Being the Elite. They've had 100 episodes of their show, which encompasses behind the scenes stuff of it, just the Young Bucks, driving to the airport and flying to their events, and but they also started to do like kind of skits and basically kind of kayfabe storylines, which would push forth their storylines that were happening in the ring, and that has started. They had on episode 100 that was called Finale, and they've taken a small break. And they didn't know when they were going to come back, and they did a couple of little teaser episodes. But now episode 101, which is the official start of season 2 of Being the Elite, has dropped. And so if you are a New Japan fan, if you're not following Being the Elite on YouTube, you should be. It's I think invaluable as a fan of the Bullet Club or just New Japan in general. You get a lot of storyline progression. Are you Being the Elite watcher, Tony?
Yeah, I watch it. I don't watch it as soon as it comes out every week, but I do get around to watching it every week when it is on. I enjoy it. They're funny.
Yeah, I mean, I once I found out about it, because like most things I hear about it, no matter what it is, I kind of like, I don't need that. And then when I finally get into it, I go, oh yeah, this is the best thing that's ever happened. So I really enjoy it. So I watch YouTube fairly regularly, and it's one of my subscriptions, so it pops up.
Yeah, my favorite part is that theme song they play. Never look back.
Oh yeah,
never say die.
That's the thing. It's like the dad, the Young Bucks dad, is like
produces all the music.
And I love the fact that the music sounds like it belongs in a John Carpenter like 1980s movie. Like it sounds like it should be in like Big Trouble in Little China or something. So yeah, I enjoy it all. So Being the Elite is back. Season 2 has begun, and if you are not aware of that, you need to get back on it and start watching it. Then we'll go into the G1 special. So we announced that the G1 special is happening in July in Cow Palace, San Francisco, California. The tickets went on sale. It's about a 10,000 seat arena. They're looking. Oh, that was the configuration. That was the report that New Japan was aiming for. But it was kind of a event like they had Strong Style Evolve that happened early in the year. And at Strong Style Evolve, they announced, hey, we're coming back in July. for the G1 special, and it's going to be in San Francisco at the Cow Palace. But there hasn't been a lot of hype around it. It's kind of a real quick turnaround. They're saying, because I'm in Long Beach, and they're going, oh yeah, hey, we're going to be back in 5 months, 6 months, whatever it is. And it wasn't. They haven't announced anything. They just say, hey, we're coming back. They put the tickets on sale, and so the rumor is that they've got the configuration for around 10,000. And then when the tickets went on sale, apparently they sold about 3,000 tickets. There were issues with the, I believe it was Ticketmaster, with the website when they went on sale. And so I believe they've sold about 3,000 tickets in this 10,000 seat arena, and that they're also holding back about 1,000 seats for any Japanese fans who, any high rollers that want to fly out, to see the shows in America.
That is a quick turnaround too, especially with the previously mentioned All In show happening in September. And that show is the Cow Palace show was in July. And then Long Beach was when was Long Beach? March?
Yeah.
March. I mean, that's, wrestling fans are willing to travel and they're willing to pay the money and go. But I mean, that's real quick, bang, bang, bang. Not to mention there's also WWE events in there too that people are wanting to go to also. So I think that's a really quick turnaround. I'm interested to see how the rest of the tickets sell.
Yeah, and to me it was like I'm primarily a New Japan fan. Like I grew up on WWF and WCW, so that I still keep up with that stuff. But if you told me like, hey, you could go to like WrestleMania, or you could go to New Japan show in California, I'm like, I'm going to the New Japan show in California. And that's what I did, because we both of us, we went to Strong Style Evolved and we hung out in Long Beach. But that we knew about that. I mean, before, last year we knew that was coming. And then all of a sudden you go like, oh, but wait, it's coming again. The thing is, I think a lot of the people that went to Long Beach for Strong Style Evolved were going, like we're coming flying in. I mean, you do have that big base of wrestling fans in the Southern California area that go to PWG and they go to Lucha Underground and all those things. But, if you're that small amount of time of that lead time to the next show, and they haven't announced anything. I mean, they haven't announced anything as far as like the matches that are happening.
No, but I will say though that I feel like though both times they've come to Long Beach, they have delivered. They have delivered.
Oh, 100%.
So I feel like the card will be good. It's just they haven't told us what it will be.
But that's the problem is now you have to wait. You have to wait for the Best for Juniors to happen, and then you have to wait for Dominion to happen, and then you're going to announce the show. So once Dominion happens, you got like less than a month before the G1 special. And is that enough time for people to go like, hey, I'm going to fly from East Coast to come to California to see the dream match that's only going to happen in the Cow Palace? So, I mean, I'm interested to see what's going to happen with these tickets. I mean, personally, as a big fan of New Japan Pro Wrestling, if I could go to this show, right now, as it looks like I can't actually get to the San Francisco show. But if you're even, remotely a fan of New Japan Pro Wrestling, I can't recommend it highly enough. I mean, you've seen it live.
Absolutely. Yeah, I give it the highest. Yeah, go out of your way to see it.
Yeah, and I've been, I've also been to multiple Pro Wrestling Guerrilla shows. I don't think have you ever been to a Pro Wrestling Guerrilla show, Tony?
Negative.
Yeah, so I've been to multiple Pro Wrestling Guerrilla shows, and those are great. It's like almost being like a punk rock wrestling show. But to me, I mean, the G1 special and then Strong Style Evolved, those two shows are the two best wrestling shows I've ever been to in my life as a pro wrestling fan. So I couldn't recommend it highly enough. So if you're looking into that, I just go buy tickets, go to it. If you can get to the show, go to the show. I'd go to that show over WrestleMania any day of the week. So we'll move on to our next news item. And Katsuyori Shibata has joined ProWrestlingTees.com. And they have just released the Wrestler shirt. And if you don't know what the Wrestler shirt is, Katsuyori Shibata the king of the badasses. He was all business. And this dude, his shirt, it was just a black shirt, white text, said "The Wrestler," and you could not get it. You just couldn't get it. Even if you could order something from Japan, if you went through all the hoops of ordering something through the Japanese websites, which is a little harder. Like, as an American, you think, I go to a website, I want to buy something, I give you my money, you send me the item. In Japan, you go to the website, and they go, oh, well, you need a Japanese address. So you have to go through a whole separate service to sign up for a Japanese address, and then they send it to that address, and then that company sends it to you. It's a whole process. So you have to go through like YouTube tutorials. It's a little daunting. And in other news, we have Minoru Suzuki is having his 30th anniversary show. He's announced that for Yokohama on June 23rd and June 24th. It'll be a full festival. There will be music acts. There will be comedy acts. There will be general artists like acrobats and other weird like kind of art things going on. And it'll be a whole celebration of Minoru Suzuki's 30 years in pro wrestling. And there will also be wrestling at this show. I don't know what the extent of, I don't know how big of a wrestling show it's going to be, but Minoru Suzuki has announced that his opponent in a wrestling match at his 30th anniversary show will be Kazuchika Okada, the Rainmaker, the current IWGP heavyweight champion. And then as a part of the music festival that will be happening at this event will feature Yumi Nakamura. Yumi Nakamura, of course, is the singer of the Minoru Suzuki's theme song, Kaze ni Nare. She has played his music live once as an entrance during Wrestle Kingdom 7. So this looks to be a great event. I mean, I personally hope that there's going to be some way for me to watch this as an American on the internet.
I want to watch it. I'm picturing the Fire Festival with just Minoru Suzuki just beating the crap out of, tourists that are there enjoying their acrobats and, pro wrestling. Just Suzuki hitting people with barricades and kicking them in the butt and choking them out. And
then you could have Lance Archer just rampaging through the thing, like spitting water on people. And
knocking people's cheese sandwiches out of their hands. Yeah, it's gonna be crazy.
Kanemaru coming through just spitting whiskey on people. It's got. I mean, I hope at least that they film the wrestling part of this. I mean, who knows like what kind of deal they have. Hopefully, it'll be on New Japan World. Maybe it'll be on one of like Samurai TV or something. I just hope. I mean, I don't care if I got to watch this illegally. I will. If there's a way I can pay to watch this and it's a reasonable price, I'm all for that as well.
Nefarious Means Network.
Yeah, exactly. So that was announced this week, and then in our final news item, which is a pretty big thing as it relates to New Japan Pro Wrestling and kind of indie wrestling in America as a whole. They have Funko, the company that makes Funko Pops, which if you're an American, you probably know what Funko Pops are. They're these little bobblehead toys. They're like little vinyl toys. They have a tiny little body. They have a giant head. And they're available everywhere. If you're at a Hot Topic, they're in the Hot Topic. If you're at a Walmart, if you're at a Kmart, or I don't know if Kmart, but if you're at a Walmart, you're at a Target.
Walgreens, CVS.
Walgreens, Barnes and Nobles. They're just everywhere. These Funko Pops are everywhere, and they are for everything. They're for movies, they're for comic books, they're for video games, and they're for wrestling. WWE has Funko Pops. You can get a Kevin Owens or a Chris Jericho or like an old school Bret Hart or an Andre the Giant. But Bullet Club are gonna get Funko Pops. Those are coming. They're coming in June. They're coming in July. And right now, the first four are going to be the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, and Cody. And the Young Bucks will be a 2-pack. Kenny and Cody will, of course, be single pops. And those will be available in a wide release anywhere you can find Funko Pops. You'll be able to find the Bullet Club Pops. But Hot Topic is announced a exclusive a paint job that they will have at Hot Topic of the Young Bucks, And if I could describe it, you'd recognize it if you're a Young Bucks fan. It's the Young Bucks, and they're in their signature Young Bucks pose where they both kind of lean to the side and they have their arms kind of flexing, and they're wearing their leather jackets with the colored tassels, and the pants are the kind of purple and patterned pants that the Young Bucks will wear on occasion. Whereas I think the wide release Young Bucks will be just kind of like a generic kind of Young Buck pattern instead of that specific paint job. So these are huge. I mean, Funko Pops in America, at least, and I'm not sure worldwide, but in America, Funko Pops are big business.
Your property has arrived.
Exactly. I mean, if you get a Funko Pop, that means a lot, and that means you're a big deal, and it also means a lot for New Japan Pro Wrestling, because these aren't just like being the elite pops. These are the lion mark. The New Japan Pro Wrestling lion mark is on these pops. And that paves the way for. I mean, I can only imagine a Rainmaker Okada doing the Rainmaker pose as a pop, or Hiroshi
Tanahashi
doing the air guitar, or a Yano Toru doing his what did I do that pose.
How many versions of Naito could you have? You could have the fist up, the lay down.
Yeah, I mean, if I get a Naito, I want him laying down, doing the
Tranquilo.
Doing the Tranquilo, laying down in the ring, or in his suit with the cape, or all that stuff. I just I think these things are going to move, and I think it's going to show New Japan that they can move forward and do specific American merchandise, because they get a lot of crazy merchandise in Japan. They got teddy bears and they got pillows and they got all sorts of weird stuff that it's a lot harder to get. Here in America, you can go to Pro Wrestling Tees, you can get a lot of the shirts. You can't get all of them, but you get most of them. But you can't get the towels. You can't get the weird little merchandise that they get in Japan. So
the sponges.
Exactly. The sponges.
You can't get the sponges. The lines were long for those sponges.
I think it's cool that we can get something that's this is an American thing, and maybe the Japanese people will be like, hey man, how do I get that Funko Pop shipped to Japan? But anyway, so that's the news, ladies and gentlemen. And now we're gonna move on, and we're gonna run down the cards for Wrestling Dontaku 2018. There was 2 nights. It was both in Fukuoka, Japan. It was May 3rd and May 4th. They featured English commentary by Kevin Kelly and Don Callis, which, for my money, the best commentary team in wrestling today. So we'll start with a match. We're going to start with night 1. This is May 3rd in Fukuoka, Japan. Wrestling Dontaku 2018. The main event, night 1, which was Hangman Page versus Kenny Omega. And the main story on this Wrestling Dontaku card is that kind of the Bullet Club versus the Bullet Club. So this is the 5th anniversary of the Bullet Club. So 2013 Dontaku was when the Bullet Club was formed, and now we're at 2018 Dontaku, and there's been a lot of strife within the Bullet Club. You got Kenny versus Cody. You got the BCOGs versus the Elite. These type of these are the storylines that we're going into right here. So we'll start with Kenny Omega versus Hangman Page, and through the whole show, we'll see that a lot of the Bullet Club members are wearing these 5th anniversary Bullet Club kimonos. Kind of a traditional Japanese robe, and it's all printed up with the 5th anniversary Bullet Club stuff, and certain members of the Bullet Club were coming out wearing these. So on this main event, Kenny comes out wearing the kimono, and Adam Page, as we find out as soon as the match starts, his entire left thigh is completely wrapped up with an ace bandage due to a groin injury, which we don't know where that groin injury happens, but we can assume it was in the Ring of Honor, because Hangman Page is primarily a Ring of Honor wrestler. I think his main contract is in Ring of Honor, and he also works for New Japan Pro Wrestling. So it was a pretty good match. I mean, any Kenny Omega match. I don't think Kenny Omega is done a match where you could say that was a bad match. I mean, you could look back to last year when he wrestled Yano Toru, and maybe you don't like comedy matches. But to me, I mean, Kenny Omega can do a comedy match just as good as he can do.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. That wasn't bad.
I thought there was some great spots in that. But so in this one, it's kind of a serious match. Basically, at the very beginning of the match, Cody runs in. Cody had been in the match before, and Cody attacks Kenny. So then it begins with like Hangman and Kenny brawling on the outside, and then there's a table set up. They try to set a table up, but they can't get it up. So the table's just flat on the ground. The actual legs of the table didn't get set up. So the table's just flat on the ground. And Page hits his finisher, the Rite of Passage, onto Kenny on the floor, onto the prone table on the floor. And then Kenny's head gets cut open, like busted open. And it appears to be hard way because the bleeding is specifically on the top of Kenny's head. So Kenny's come out. He's no longer the cleaner Kenny Omega. He's the best bout machine Kenny Omega. His hair's completely blonde. There's no more gray in it. And when he gets this rite of passage on the floor, top of his head gets cut open, and the entire top of his head, of his blonde head, is just bright red. It doesn't really get into his face much, like a little kind of stream maybe, but not like much. But you get this kind of great visual of this just crimson top of Kenny's head. There's a lot of brawling outside, kind of, a great back and forth like any Kenny Omega match is going to have. One of the great spots in the match, Page hits a top rope neck breaker to Omega into the ring. It's just a brutal kind of looking spot. Then Kenny hits like multiple V triggers to Page. And then one of the most beautiful spots, I mean, probably the most beautiful spot of the match, Page tries to do his slingshot lariat, he kind of flips himself, like he grabs onto the top rope from the outside and he flips himself over the top rope and into a lariat. So they call it the slingshot lariat. And as he's trying to do that, he runs right into like Kenny Omega bouncing off the rope and hitting a big V trigger, and just a beautiful spot.
I love the V trigger, man. I love when he hits that V trigger. I've seen it in person. I've seen it on TV. I love when he hits that thing. I wish that was his finish more than the one-winged angel. I wish he just hit that V trigger and lights out.
Yeah.
Boom, done. So,
well, my thing was when I saw this spot, like as I'm watching the match live, I see Kenny Omega bouncing off for the V trigger, and I see Adam Page slingshotting himself over for the slingshot lariat. So I mean, looking at the timing of the two guys going at each other, I thought for sure that Adam Page was going to hit the lariat, and like I thought Kenny was going to run into the lariat, but then Adam runs into the V trigger, and man, like just one of the most impactful moves I've seen in a wrestling match in a long time. Just amazing. And then after that, Kenny Omega hits the one-wing angel, and then it's 1, 2, 3. Kenny Omega gets the pin over Adam Page. Omega wins the main event of Wrestling Dontaku 2018, Night 1. So what did you think of this match, Tony?
I thought it was a good match. I mean, Kenny Omega is one of the best wrestlers in the world, so of course, he's going to bring his A game. But I thought Page held his own in the match. It's good, and you don't get better unless you work with people that are better than you. So for Page to be out there with Kenny, I thought, he held his own, and there were some great spots in the match. And I feel like that sentiment was echoed later in the Kota and Kota Ibushi and Cody match.
So that was the main event. So the semifinal of the match that came before that, which we'll move into right now, which was the American Nightmare Cody versus the Golden Star Kota Ibushi. And basically in this match, again, they're still going over that like this is telling the story of, even though it's Cody versus Kota Ibushi, this is basically furthering the story of Cody versus Kenny for like leadership of the Bullet Club. So Cody comes out and he's got this kind of crazy like 1990s X-Men kind of like super villain gear that he's wearing when he comes out. Like he's got a cape and like these big shoulder pads. And they start the match off. And then Cody's selling the neck. Like he's like, oh, my neck's hurt, and then like they're really selling the neck, like oh, maybe they need to stop the match, and then he's basically just doing that to get the upper hand. So Cody gets the upper hand, and he starts beating down Kota, and then Cody starts doing to taunt Kota Ibushi, he starts doing like push-ups in the middle of the ring, and then that's when it occurred to me, like he's basically just doing like the greatest hits of like mid to late 90s like WCW heels. Like he's doing heel Ric Flair, he's doing heel Hulk Hogan, he's doing heel like Scott Steiner, Big Papa Pump, because he comes out and he does like the Hogan like taunting like doing the ear like thing to like put his hand up to his ear when the crowd is like booing him. And he's definitely been doing a lot of Ric Flair. Like he's coming out in the suits. He's got the ring, got the bleach blonde hair. I mean, I just love everything he's doing because that's when he grew up. He's younger than we are, and that's he grew up with his dad working in WCW, and NWO was at its height. So to see him doing all these kind of classic WCW heel spots is just, for me as an old school WCW fan, I love it. Some of the great spots in this match, you get to see Kota. He fires up after getting the beat down from Cody, and he does his little golden triangle to the outside, which, I mean, dangerous looking move, but when he hits it, it's amazing. Just sometimes I'm going, man, one day no one's going to be there, and you're just going to be eating it on the outside. Then there was a slap exchange. Now, this is the one part of the match I was like the hugest fan of. But basically, because you get in New Japan, you get these, they call it a fighting spirit spot. Basically, like I slap you, you slap me, I hit you with a shoulder or like a forearm or an elbow or something, or a headbutt, and then you go, yeah, hit me harder, or or I say, you hit me harder, and you go back and forth. So these guys, they start like exchanging slaps, and then it ends up looking like two kids doing a slap fight, where they're just kind of going, oh no, we're just gonna hit each other. So it didn't. I mean, I don't know. I think it was just the heat of the moment thing, and it didn't really play to me. But you get this slap fight moment, and then in the middle of the match, Red Shoes, he gets splashed in the corner by Cody, and Red Shoes, if you slightly brush him, he's down for the count for fucking 10 minutes. So Red Shoes is out there. Yeah, right. Like any ref in any wrestling federation, he just hits the ground, rolls outside, and he's, playing dead for 10, 15 minutes. But then then the shenanigans start. Cody brings in a table. But what happens, Cody brings in a table, he sets up the table, and you think he's going to suplex Kota Ibushi into the table. It doesn't quite work out that way. Basically, Kota, gets the upper hand on Cody and, gets a couple shots on him, and Cody's laying on the table. And then Kota gets onto the top rope, and this table is up in the ring. And Kota Ibushi is up on the top rope, and he goes to do a double stomp on Cody, who's laying on the table. But the table doesn't break. The table doesn't even budge. He just hits him, and he goes kind of like, ugh. It's just, one of those, just super hard moves. Because the whole point is that the table's supposed to break, and it's not going to hurt that much, right? But then Kota gets back up and is like, all right, well, we're doing this spot again. He gets back up onto the top rope. He goes to do the double stomp again. And this time, Cody goes through the wooden part of the table. Like, he basically gets shoved through the frame of the table. Like, the frame doesn't move. The table breaks, but the frame doesn't really break. So I think they just had, maybe whoever's, providing the gimmick tables, maybe it was a new company or something. Like Cody gets shoved through the table with the second double foot stomp and gets his back kind of lacerated. He's bleeding out his back. He's bruised pretty hard on his back. And then the match continues. You get Cody, Cody kind of tries to escape. He runs to the outside. He runs over the first barrier, and he's kind of I got to get the hell out of here. And then Kota jumps onto the top rope, the corner in the ring, and then dives over the first barrier onto Cody outside the ring. So kind of a lengthy dive out to the outside. It was great. And then basically they continue back into the ring, and Cody hits his new finisher. It's a version of the Vertebreaker. He calls it Din's Fire. It's a cool move just hitting the vertebraker on somebody. But on this first time he's hit it, it didn't look great. It was more like instead of Kota hitting his shoulder and his neck on the ring like it should look, basically the entire impact was on Cody's back. So Cody sat down and all of Kota Ibushi's weight was on his back. So it didn't look great. I think it'll look better as he goes forward. And I think Cody probably needs a new finisher at this point. So I think it's a good idea because the Crossroads, it's cool, but it's not that, it doesn't have that impact like that. It's always one of the things I wanted to see when he moved to the Indies and then to New Japan was to see a new finisher. So this new version of the vertebraker is called Din's Fire. And then basically Din's Fire is a reference to Legend of Zelda. And Din is the goddess of power. So one of the three goddesses that created the entire world of Hyrule. And her symbol / element is fire. And her Triforce, out of the three pieces of Triforce, there's courage, wisdom, and power. Her Triforce is the Triforce of power. And the Triforce of power is the Triforce that Ganon wields. And Ganon, of course, is the main villain of the Legend of Zelda. So that's what the reference means. So if you didn't understand what Din's Fire means, that's where we are with that. But, so Cody wins. As was expected, you had Cody in one main event or in the semi-main, and you had Kenny in the main. Obviously, they're feuding, so Cody's going to win his match. Kenny's going to win his match. It seemed all on the up and up. So we'll move further back on the card to match 7, which was a tag match. That was Kushida and Tanahashi and kind of the babyface team versus Will Ospreay, the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champion, and Kazuchika Okada, the IWGP Heavyweight Champion. And this match was a tag match. It was basically setting up the two main events for the next night with Kushida and Ospreay and Tanahashi and Okada. So, I mean, that's what these kind of matches are set up to do. Is just, these four guys are in single matches the next day, so we're going to just use this match. As it doesn't really mean anything, but it just kind of builds up to the next night match. And you think they're going to take the night off. You think it's going to be like, oh, we'll just take it easy, but they end up going pretty hard. So when Kushida and Ospreay are in there, they're going pretty hard. And when Tanahashi and Okada are in there, they're going pretty hard. So the things I noted from this match, when Kushida came out, he, if you're like a newer fan or maybe it's something you're just not quite paying attention to, is Kushida's gear. He's a big Back to the Future fan. That's why he's called the Time Splitter. He's come out to the, Back to the Future music, and he's had Back to the Future. He came out in a DeLorean one year at Wrestle Kingdom. He's got his white trunks and his white boots, but they have this trim, and it's the trim is the print from the hoverboard in Back to the Future 2. It's that pink, yellow, green kind of design from the hoverboard in Back to the Future 2. So it's just a nice touch because he's like a huge Back to the Future fan. The crowd in this match firmly behind Tanahashi. When it got down to Tanahashi and Okada, like this crowd is behind Tanahashi. Some of the good moves that I really noticed, you had Okada hitting this huge flapjack onto Tanahashi. Like this flapjack went so high in the air, I thought Tanahashi was gonna like fly over the top rope, like out onto the floor. Like it looked like, I was like, holy shit! Like he needs to grab to that rope, man, or he's gonna eat it outside. But he landed in the ring, and it was just the highest flapjack I've seen in a match that I could ever remember. Then these guys are outside and they're teasing. Okada's teasing hitting the tombstone onto Tanahashi on the outside, and the crowd is just like shocked, like, oh my god, he's gonna do it. Then Tana gets Okada into a position, and he hits a dragon screw leg whip to Okada on the outside. And generally speaking, if you're gonna hit a dragon screw leg whip, basically I'm gonna grab your leg and I'm gonna whip you around, and you should have enough room to like fully rotate your body and land to the other side of wherever you are. But since they're on the outside, Okada has nowhere to go. So it's just one of the most brutal looking dragon's screw leg whips you can hit, because he doesn't have anywhere to flip to. He's right next to the ring. There's nowhere to go. So it was just a really good execution of that move. And then as far as Kushida versus Ospreay, they're flying all over the place. Ospreay goes to come off the top rope to hit a move on Kushida, and Kushida jumps up and in midair catches Ospreay into like an arm bar. So they land. He grabs him and lands in an arm bar. It's just a crazy looking move. And then eventually at the end of the match, you get Okada. He gets the win over Kushida. He hits Kushida with the Rainmaker, and he gets a 1-2-3. So overall, it's a great match just to set up the next night's main events. And like I said, you didn't expect them to go that hard, but they went pretty hard in this match. So I mean, did you have any thoughts on this match, Tony?
Towards the end there, just at the end, I mean, it was a great match. Like you said, I like the way these tag matches, New Japan doesn't have like a weekly television show. They don't have like a Monday Night Raw or something like that. So a lot of times what I notice is these tag matches sort of serve as your backstage segments, or they kind of let the guys, put out a little bit of character, put out a little bit of personality, maybe work a little angle or whatever, just a small little, he didn't tag him, or the way he tagged him or whatever. But, just a good match setting up for the night before. And I really liked the Tanahashi Okada face off at the end of the match, setting up for the next night. The face off between those guys was just, I was like, yeah, and get here tomorrow.
Yeah. And you make a good point that New Japan Pro Wrestling does not have a weekly show. There is no equivalent of Monday Night Raw or SmackDown on New Japan. I think they have some sort of show that runs, but it's not the equivalent of a Raw, even like what we get here in America. Because I think me and yourself, we're mostly watching New Japan World. We're not watching. They do have that weekly show on Access, right? New Japan Pro Wrestling. I forget what they call it, but it's on Access TV. But that's more of like that might be a few months behind where the actual product is, and we're usually watching what's happening on New Japan World. But a lot of these, as the tour moves towards the main shows, they have to get all that storyline build up and that tension built up just in these like tag matches, which is why I always recommend people watch these tag matches. So yeah, I thought it was a great match. And then we'll move down to match 6 on the card. And that was basically Suzuki Gun versus Los Ingobernables de Japón. So earlier in the tour, Minoru Suzuki lost his Intercontinental Championship to Tetsuya Naito, the two leaders of the factions. And this was just kind of furthering the story of Suzuki Gun and Los Ingobernables de Japón just battling. So the Suzuki Gun team is Minoru Suzuki, Zack Sabre Jr., Taichi, Yoshinobu Kanemaru, and El Desperado, fighting the Los Ingobernables de Japón team of Tetsuya Naito, Evil, Sanada, Bushi, and Hiromu. And this is your standard 10-man tag. You're just going to get these guys kind of pairing off, and they're going to go at it. It's just great. These are two very popular stables. Los Ingobernables de Japón is undoubtedly the most popular stable in New Japan Pro Wrestling at this time. And Suzuki Gun, they're popular, but they are probably the purest heel stable going on, because a lot of these other stables are they're bad guys, but they're really popular bad guys, kind of like Razor Ramon in WWF, or he's a bad guy, but he's really cool, and everyone's like, yeah, that guy's cool.
Cool heels.
Yeah, whereas Suzuki Gun are no, these guys are just heels. These guys are just straight up bad guys.
Dicks.
It's easy to boo them. So things of note that happened in this match is when the teams come out, Naito has won the Intercontinental belt, but after he won it, he said I didn't want this belt, and he didn't know what he was going to do with the belt. And even if you look back to when he had the IC belt the first time, he physically destroyed the belt. He literally would come out, he would throw the belt into the air. He would slam it against the steps. He would slam it against the ring post to the point where he broke the physical, the metal plates of the belt, So he comes out and he does not bring the belt out with him. No one's carrying the belt. He's not carrying the belt. It's just not, he doesn't bring it out with them. And then, when Suzuki Gun's out there, Taka Michinoku has been doing his little hype man gimmick for Zack Sabre Jr. So he cuts a promo in Japanese, basically talking about how great Suzuki Gun is and how great Zack Sabre Jr. is. The two teams are out there, and it just starts with a huge brawl. Like most Suzuki Gun matches, if they're in a big team match against somebody, normally like right before the bell sounds, you're gonna get all of Suzuki Gun just rushing the other team. And that's exactly what happens here. During the match, things that I really noted, Naito, he truly gives no fucks. This guy, he spits on Minoru Suzuki, which, there's more creative ways to commit suicide, but I think, spitting on Suzuki is one of the surer ways to accomplish that. So he spits on Suzuki, just kind of like the balls, like, just like, oh my God, like it's the kind of thing that happens and you kind of like, everyone just kind of inhales, like, oh, what's going to happen? Yeah. And then later on in the match, you get Suzuki and Zack Sabre Jr. They do a double submission spot on Naito. So, if you're unfamiliar with Zack Sabre Jr., he's a submission specialist. Maybe the greatest submission specialist that I've ever seen. Like, he can take any part of your body, and he can, the way he just can improvise submission holds. Doesn't matter what. If you got anything hanging out, he's gonna grab it. He's gonna crank on it, and he's gonna try to get a submission. And
not to mention, he's so long and spindly that his arms and legs just wrap around you like an anaconda.
Yeah, he's like an octopus. Like he's like a squid. Like he just gets around you, and like he wraps around your back, and then he wraps around your front, and then he just putting you in every kind of move. So I think Suzuki's really kind of, taking some kind of inspiration from seeing Zack Sabre Jr. since he's been in Suzuki Gun. And they were both just grabbing the legs, grabbing the arms, just grabbing whatever they could. And it was just like a very cool spot to see both of them, trying to get submission holds on Naito. Later on in the match, you see Sonata grab Kanemaru and put him in the Paradise Lock. And the Paradise Lock is that kind of move where he kind of wraps your legs and your arms together and kind of ties you up so you can't get out of it. So you're kind of, the only way to get out of it is if somebody kicks you in the ass really hard. Like that seems to be literally the only way to get somebody out of that hold. So that's all.
I thought it was cute, Sonata trying to put Zack Sabre in the Paradise Lock.
Oh yeah, and he just wouldn't let him do it. Yeah,
he just kept slapping his hands away. Like, what is this? What are you doing here?
Yeah, that was good because obviously you can't do that to. You're not going to get that on Zack Sabre.
I literally said to myself, "That's cute."
yeah. I thought it was a good little. Yeah, that was a great spot in the match, and the match ends with Evil hitting his STO on Kanemaru and getting the 1, 2, 3. So the LIJ team gets the win over Suzuki Gun, and after the match, when Suzuki Gun loses a match. The Young Lions need to run for the hills because you got the Young Lions are the kind of the ring attendants outside of the ring, and it was a Suzuki Gun. Any member of Suzuki Gun, if they lose a match, they're going after any young lion that's sitting there, and they just start kicking them and hitting with chairs and stuff. So that's always one of my favorite things of the night is watching Suzuki just kick the shit out of some poor idiot young boy sitting on the outside of the ring. And then after Suzuki Gun leaves, the Young Bucks come out and they challenge Evil and Sonata to a heavyweight tag belt match. The Young Bucks, of course, have just moved up to the heavyweight division. They're no longer junior heavyweights. And then they're in the match. They're in the ring with Evil and Sonata, and after they challenge them to this, title shot, then they both super kick Evil and Sonata, laying them out, and then the Young Bucks run out of the ring. And then after Evil gets back up, Evil picks up the mic and he accepts the challenge. So it looks like we're going to have the Young Bucks versus Evil and Sonata for the heavyweight title shot. So Tony, what did you think of the match, and what do you think of this upcoming match between Evil and Sonata and the Young Bucks?
I thought it was another standard tag match, but good. But yeah, I'm excited for the Bucks to be up in that heavyweight division now. I think there's a lot of good matches for them, and they've been, down in the junior heavyweight tag division for quite a while now, if I remember correctly. And I think they've been the champions there a few times, the junior heavyweight tag champs a few times. So yeah, there's some good matches up there, and we know, those two guys are amazing workers, so they're going to be able to, hang and have some killer matches with these heavyweight tag teams. So I'm looking forward to it.
So we will get into night 2 of Wrestling Dontaku 2018 now, and that also happened in Fukuoka, Japan. That was May 4th, 2018. And the main event, which we will start off with, is Hiroshi Tanahashi versus Kazuchika Okada. And the current record between these two wrestlers is 4-4-1. So they each had 4 wins, and there was one time limit draw. The last time,
I couldn't believe that these guys have only had. This was only their 10th singles match against each other. Most of these feuds in wrestling today, you think to your WWE feuds, even Ring of Honor feuds, these guys are feuding for months and months and having dozens of singles matches, and these guys have only had 10.
Exactly, and this is kind of the beauty of the way New Japan Pro Wrestling books their product, is that they don't have that 6-7 hours of TV to fill every week, so you're not getting these constant rematches. So when you lose a title, you don't get an automatic rematch, and there's no 30 days you have to defend the title. There's none of those shenanigans going on in New Japan Pro Wrestling. So if you're the champion for a year and you lose the belt, you're not guaranteed. You might have to fight your way up for another 6 months to a year to get a title shot. And so, again, they're 4-4-1. Their last match was, I believe, the G1 Special, or no, correction, not the G1 Special, the G1 Climax 2 years ago. It was to decide who was the winner of the block, and basically it was like if Okada won or Tanahashi won, they would win the block. But they went to a time limit draw, and because they went to the time limit draw, Hiroki Goto, who was basically in the 3rd spot, he moved up to the 1 spot, and he got into the main event.
Had that amazing match with Omega too. That was
exactly
that was great.
As much as people kind of disregard Goto, when he needs to go in a main event, he can go. Pretty much anybody in the upper mid card of New Japan. If you put him in a singles match and you're like, hey man, this is the big time, it's going to be a blow away match. So Tanahashi and Okada, and basically the story here is Tanahashi was the ace of New Japan Pro Wrestling. If you look at modern New Japan Pro Wrestling, the juggernaut that it has become in these recent years, it really is the house that Tanahashi built. They call him the ace for a reason. And then Okada, that 4-4-1, that really is the story of this young upstart coming back from Excursion, in this kind of disastrous excursion to Impact, where they didn't know what to do with the guy, and they're calling him Okado, and they're putting him in a Green Hornet, Bruce Lee gimmick.
It was criminal. It was criminal. It was one of the worst travesties of booking this guy. That's straight money. One of the biggest screw ups, I think. I just can't believe how they screwed this guy up bad with Okada.
And the thing is, of that era of TNA, which I know it's not TNA anymore, now it's just Impact. But come on, you had AJ Styles, you had Kazuchika Okada, you had Samoa Joe, you had all these guys who were top stars of the industry worldwide. And you didn't know what to do with them. I never forgave them for, after Angle versus Samoa Joe, and they had Angle go over, where it's it couldn't be more obvious. You put Joe over. Angle could get his win back later, but you put Joe over, and they didn't do it. But But I digress. So we'll get back into this match, Tanahashi versus Okada, and this is a huge match. The fans are really behind Tanahashi. Even now, he's been kind of taken out of the limelight somewhat. He's no longer like the 1A of New Japan Pro Wrestling, and he's still in the top 4.
He needs to be taken out a little bit because he's banged up. Correct? I mean, he's basically a cyborg at this point, operating with. He's more machine now than a man.
Yeah, I mean, he's had like noted health issues, bicep tears and pectoral issues and stuff, and he always fights through it, because he's the ace, and that's just like John Cena, taking a surgery and coming back like 3 days later like some kind of maniac. Like that's the kind of man Tanahashi is, and so. But the thing is, when you tell me Tanahashi is going to fight Okada in a main event for the IWGP Heavyweight Championship, I'm like, I know no matter how beat up Tanahashi is, this man is bringing the A game. Like this is going to be a 5-star classic, and they didn't disappoint. So we start off this one. We'll get a little more in depth into this because this was a main event. So they're going back and forth. Okada is teasing the Rainmaker. The crowd's booing Okada. Like the crowd is firmly in Tanahashi's side. You get Kevin Kelly and Don Callis. They're just doing tremendous play-by-play. I think one of the greatest lines that I noticed in this match was like Kelly saying like, "Oh, passing the torch is one thing, but Okada wants to extinguish the light." So basically, you're getting heel Okada. Like Okada knows that this crowd wants Tanahashi to win, so there's no point in him trying to play the babyface. He knows he has to be the heel in this one. He knocks Okada, Okada knocks Tanahashi down, and he does a thing where he puts like one foot on his chest, and then he goes to do the Rainmaker pose, and the crowd is just booing. Like the entire crowd is booing, and it's just a great moment. Then they go to the outside. Tanahashi hits a high fly flow to the outside. His like frog splash finisher. Okada does a tombstone to Tanahashi on the outside. It's like kind of a crazy spot. Just great. And after that, they've been fighting for the outside for a while. You get a count out tease. Okada gets back into the ring, and then Tanahashi gets in like right at 19, like literally the last second. This is always great because if you're a American wrestling fan, a WWE fan, they have the 10 count. In New Japan Pro Wrestling, they have the 20 count, and it's just the tension of because they count it out in English, so that you hear the guy over the loudspeaker, and it just ramps up and ramps up. So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then once you get past 10, the guy just gets more like distressed, like every number, like 12, 13, 14, 15, like he's freaking out by the time he's getting to 19. And like 19, he's like screaming 19 into the mic, and then the crowd's like, "Oh my god!" They're freaking out, and then Tanahashi at the last second just throws himself under the bottom rope, and it's occasionally like once a year you'll get like an actual count out loss. Generally, this happens in the G1 tournament, like once a year. Just great. And then you get the two Okada and Tanahashi. They're trading shots in the middle of the ring. Heel Okada, he gets Tanahashi down, and he's just kicking him while he's down, just getting those boos. You're fighting spirit spot, and like we kind of discussed it earlier, but basically a fighting spirit spot is like you see it a lot in New Japan Pro Wrestling. It's basically when the two guys are in the middle of the ring and they're just trading blows. Like just hit me with your forearm, I'll hit you with my forearm, and they're just going back and forth. And Okada falls down from that forearm spot, and later on Okada goes for the drop kick, his classic, the perfect drop kick in the world from Okada, and then nobody's home. You get a sling blade from Tanahashi for a 2 count, and then Tanahashi jumps up for the high fly flow from the top rope, and then nobody's home. Like Okada gets out of the way, the drop kick. You get Okada goes for the Rainmaker, and Tanahashi counters with the sling blade. Both men are down. It's a tremendous match the whole time. You get another tombstone tease. So basically, the way Okada sets up a rainmaker, his rainmaker is basically kind of a ripcord lariat. He grabs you from behind, he holds onto your arm, spins you around into a short arm lariat. Basically, it's kind of backwards. He does a tombstone, and then he picks you back up, and then he does the lariat. So, like in American wrestling, that would be the other way around. Like you do the lariat, then you grab the guy and you do the tombstone, and that would be the end of the match. So you get this tombstone tease where the two guys are trying to grab each other, and they're trying to crank each other into the tombstone. So you got to get this back and forth tease for that. Tana hits the tombstone on Okada, goes for the high fly flow with Okada on his stomach, so to the back of Okada, hits it, and then, man, you go, oh, he hit the high fly flow. That's his finisher. But he knows he can't put Okada out, which is one high fly flow, so he jumps back up to the top rope, goes for another high fly flow, and Okada gets the knees up, and then, Tanahashi just eats both knees, like hardcore eats both knees. Then Okada goes for the Rainmaker. Tanahashi ducks it, and they just back and forth. They're getting dragon suplexes, drop kicks, sling blades, high fly flows. Tanahashi goes for a high fly flow into Okada's drop kick. It just a beautiful spot. And then Okada teases the Rainmaker, but no, Tanahashi hits a Rainmaker on Okada, which is a great spot. At this point, every 5 minutes in a main event in New Japan, they'll call out over the loudspeaker. They're like, 5 minutes has passed. They'll say it in English. They'll say it in Japanese. So at this point, this match has gone 30 minutes, just hardcore bell-to-bell action for 30 minutes. The crowd's chanting for Tanahashi. Then they get into a slap spot. Tanahashi just slaps Okada right in the face, to the point where Okada gets a bruised cheek, like a contusion, like he smacks him that hard. Again, Okada goes for the Rainmaker, and Tana counters a Rainmaker with an open hand slap to the face. Just great. And then you've had the spot that's happened in earlier matches where Okada, he keeps wrist control. So he's trying to go for the Rainmaker. Tana's trying to fight out of it with his slaps and his slaps, and slapping and slapping and slapping. But he keeps holding on to the wrist control so he can try to go for the Rainmaker. Finally, he loses wrist control. They go back and forth a little bit longer, and then finally, Okada hits the final Rainmaker. Then 1, 2, 3, Okada wins. I mean, this is a historic run. He's not only had the IWGP Heavyweight Championship for the longest amount of time, he's now defended it more times than anyone else has ever defended it in history. I mean, it's just a historic run. Tony, how are you feeling about this match?
It's one of the storied rivalries of all time, Tanahashi versus Okada, and I was saying earlier about the amount of matches that they've wrestled. You can have an all-time feud where, look at, although, Ricky Steamboat and Ric Flair wrestled, countless times, people remember that trilogy of matches that they had. People don't remember the countless matches that John Cena wrestled Randy Orton, but these guys, their matches have been so good, and there's been so few of them that it's just, they're really something to see when they happen. And this could have been the last one that they've had, so
it might be.
It was. Yeah, it very well might be, and it was really something to see. So I was very impressed with all of it. I thought one of those tombstones, I can't remember which exactly one at what point it was, but one of them I thought was a little whole. Like I always get that feeling watching New Japan. Like I always get that like somebody told these guys it's a work, right?
Yeah.
But there was a tombstone spot. I can't remember which exactly one it was, but I thought it was a little close there.
I believe it was during this match. There was a couple times. I think probably the same spot you're thinking of. One of them had the other one in the tombstone, and I'm like in my apartment, like standing up, going, his head's too low. His head,
right?
Like I'm going, he's too low, man. You gotta choke up on that dude.
I had the same thing.
Drive him right into the mat.
Totally. And the tombstone is, compared to a traditional sit down pile driver, the tombstone is a fairly protected, easy finish to take. You know what I mean? But this one, I was like, cringing my teeth, watching it. But and not that it was like egregiously like sloppy or anything like that. It was just a little bit where I was kind of, but they obviously were fine. But it was just an amazing match. And I mean, I was on the cliche, I was on the edge of my seat the whole time because, like I said, this could have been the last one. And when Okada defends the title, he's had the title for so long at this point, and you said the consecutive title defenses and all of those records that, I kind of don't get excited for challengers anymore. Like when somebody challenges him, it's like, yeah, he's probably going to win, and somebody's going to, when they beat him, they'll beat him, and I'll be like, oh, they finally beat him. But being Tanahashi, it gave me that, well, this isn't just anybody. This is Tanahashi, and he's always, is he going to, still be that one, yeah, I can still beat you, Okada,
Well, because, when I started watching New Japan Pro Wrestling in 2013, there's only been 4 guys that have held the belt. And it was Tanahashi, Okada, AJ Styles, and Naito. Those are the 4 guys, since I've watched in 2013 up to 2018, present day. Those are only 4 guys that ever held the belt. So there was a strong contingent of New Japan fans that were going, hey man, Tanahashi, he might, maybe they'll give him the belt that one last time, as like, you get that one last run with the belt, and I really. I genuinely thought that Tanahashi was going to win this match. And I mean, I was, when, of course, when Okada hits that last Rainmaker, you go, all right, well, that's it. When you finally, but they've got to the point where they can duck that Rainmaker or, transition out of it. And that's the beautiful part of having only these 10 matches is that if you go back and if you watch them in consecutive order, there's a story, they build upon it. There's like spots that because at first it was, of course, Tanahashi getting the win over Okada, and then you finally get Okada getting the win over Tanahashi, and they've built on these spots over these 10 matches.
And I wonder how much of that speaks to the way that Okada puts his matches together, because I also have here in my notes that Okada is awesome, period. That is all the best in the world. Like, he's the best. But, how you're saying over this series of these 10 matches and each builds is you even notice that with the matches he's had with Omega over the last year, which each one of those had spots in it that built to the next and I wonder how much of that is the way that Okada has input putting those matches together and working that this is how when he's working those longer programs and feuds with those guys like Omega and Tanahashi.
Yeah, 'cause I don't know how it works. Like I don't know if they have like the traditional agents like like American wrestling does. I mean, I assume they do, but then I think like Omega, a lot of the stuff he does, like he also like will improvise during a match. So I don't know like who's calling the match. I mean, Tanahashi, because even though Okada's the top guy.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying as far as not so much who's leading the match or calling it, but I mean like as far as him providing quality input on his end of these matches. Could be why you see that in these different series of when he has those multiple matches with guys, you see those spots that build upon each other as the series continues,
Yeah. And so I think we're on the same page here. So that was the main event for night 2 of Wrestling Dontaku 2018. And so now basically you've had Kazuchika Okada, this champion who's had the belt for so long and longer than anybody else and has defended it more than anybody else. He's beat Omega, he's beat Naito, he's beat Tanahashi, he's beat Ishii, he's beat Shibata. I mean, he's beat everybody. It's like, who else, at this point,
Sonata, Evil.
Exactly. He's beating everybody. And, and they're shooting the streamers out, and, Gato's coming out talking about how great Okada is, and it's like, who's going to be the next person to challenge Okada, because he's really beaten everybody. And Okada gets on the mic and he starts, it's in Japanese. He's talking a little bit of smack to Tanahashi, but he's also like giving him respect. And then as he's talking on, in the post match, in the ring on the mic, he challenges Kenny Omega to a match. And basically, they've had matches where there's always been a time limit. It's a half hour for like the G1 or like an hour for their main event matches. And Okada comes, he says, Omega, he calls Omega out. Omega comes out because Omega's been in a match earlier in the night. And he says, I challenge you to a match and we'll make it a no time limit match. And then Omega, as the best bout machine, Kenny Omega, he speaks perfect Japanese. Like, he's basically lives in Japan. He speaks Japanese fluently.
Kenny Swole Mega.
Yeah, exactly.
He came out looking like he's been eating some good groceries.
Yeah,
he
man.
was looking ripped.
He's been eating that good sushi over there.
Yeah.
And Kenny Omega comes out and he says, no, let's not just do a no time limit match. Let's do a best 2 out of 3. Let's do a 2 out of 3 falls, which, just to your point, like you were talking about Ric Flair and the Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, they're known for that, their 2 out of 3 falls match back in like the late 80s. And so what we're looking at, and we'll talk about it later on,
is a 90-minute match.
Yeah, we're talking Dominion. They're going to go 2 out of 3 falls for the IWGP Championship, no time limit. We're looking, like you said, 90 minutes. I think we're looking at least an hour and a half for this match. Like, this could be like the greatest match anyone's ever seen. Like, I can't wait. I cannot wait for this match.
It really could. These guys have ripped it up every single time they've been in there together, and neither one of them has fallen off, or their work since they've worked together has been great. So they've kept them apart, and it's I'm looking forward to it, is all I can say. I can't even say how excited I am.
Yeah.
I'm excited for it.
So that's how we end Wrestling Dontaku 2018. You get Okada going over Tanahashi, maybe finally putting to bed that, at the 5-4-1, with just one win over Tanahashi, that might be the end. You might not ever see that match again. But Okada has cemented himself as the greatest IWGP heavyweight champion of all time. And he calls out Kenny Omega, which, I thought maybe we weren't going to see that match for a while. Since, Kenny Omega has been reunited with Kota Ibushi as the Golden Lovers, I thought we were going to be looking at a tag belt run for them. But I'm all for Omega versus Okada in a 2 out of 3 falls, no time limit. But we'll get more into that later, and we'll go back and run the rest of this card down. So we'll go from the main event, we'll move backwards to the semi-main event, which is for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship. That is the challenger, Kushida, versus Will Ospreay, the champion. And I would say this is a great match. This is a great high-flyer junior heavyweight match. Both wrestlers come out with a lot of that trainer tape on their shoulders, like on their neck and their shoulders. I think that's supposed to hold your muscles in place or something. I don't know exactly what that trainer tape does, but basically they're just saying I have an injury. Like in the story of the match, you're telling your opponent, my neck is hurt or my back is hurt or whatever. Kind of like if you remember in Monday Nitro back in WCW, DDP with his ribs taped up, kind of I'm hurt. And so everybody goes after the ribs. So Ospreay is selling his arm and his neck because it's all taped up. During this match, Kushida hits this crazy rolling DDT from the apron to the floor, just a crazy looking DDT. To the point where the announcers, because Ospreay's selling his arm and his neck and everything's so well that the announcers are calling for a stoppage. Like the old JR, somebody stop the match. That the man has a family type call that you would get back in the late 90s. And then they go for one of those fighting spirit spots, but kind of kneeling. They're just delivering forearms to each other. And then both opponents rip, end up, after they've been fighting for a while, they just rip the tape off of themselves, kind of we're going for it, and then Kushida just gets the upper hand, and Kushida just goes into kind of full heel mode, he's grabbing Ospreay's arms, just trapping him and just stomping him, kind of multiple kind of curb stomps, to the front and to the back. Then Will Ospreay hits this cutter off the top rope. Kushida goes for a top rope move. Ospreay jumps up, basically gets a diamond cutter out of nowhere. And then at the end of the match, Ospreay hits his new finisher, the Stormbreaker, to get the win. How'd you feel about this match, Tony?
I just thought it was incredible. These are two of the most athletic guys you're going to see out there, and it was just, to even try to keep up with the moves was insane. So I thought it was amazing from start to finish. These guys are incredible.
Yeah, I mean, like, as far as being like the semi-main event, like they set the bar for Tanahashi and Okada, kind of like, top that, boys.
Yeah.
Like that. It was a great. I thought, again, Tanahashi versus Okada. If you're only going to watch one match, that's the match to watch. But I mean, these two matches, the semi and the main, these are both just kind of classic all-time matches. And
Absolutely.
Whereas Tanahashi and Okada is more of a deliberate storytelling, Kushida versus Ospreay is kind of that, full throttle junior heavyweight style where they're just going hard the whole time. Just a great match. Yeah. And so basically, Ospreay wins, Kushida rolls out of the ring. This strange music starts to play, this music that we haven't heard, and the lights start to flicker. You get kind of this like weird lighting effect in the arena. And then Tama Tonga comes out, and he's just kind of wearing street clothes at this point. And he's coming out with the mic, and you're sitting there and you're going, why is Tama Tonga coming out? He's not a junior heavyweight. He's obviously a heavyweight. And Tama Tonga comes out and basically starts talking to Will Ospreay, and he starts saying that there was an idea for a wrestler and everything, and then he's basically talking about Bone Soldier, and then the camera pulls back, and then the new Bone Soldier is standing behind Will Ospreay, and Tama Tonga says, "Hey, look behind yourself," and then Will Ospreay turns around. Go ahead.
Bone Soldier.
Exactly. Yeah, the new Bone Soldier is like ripped, like full six pack. This is a jacked dude, and he turns around, and Bone Soldier just drops Will Ospreay. Does a couple moves on him, just lays him out, and then Tama Tonga, basically Bone Soldier unbuttons the mask, and then Tama Tonga pulls the mask off, and he reveals that the new Bone Soldier is Taiji Ishimori. You might know Taiji Ishimori. He's most recently been in Impact Wrestling. I don't personally follow Impact Wrestling recently. I don't have Pop TV. Before he was in Impact Wrestling, he was in Pro Wrestling Noah, and he had left. And he announced that he wanted to leave and he wanted to try to go to WWE. So Taiji Ishimori, I don't know this guy, but he is ripped, dude. He's a good-looking dude, and it was kind of an impactful introduction of the character. So I'm excited to see this new Bone Soldier, and I think I believe, I don't know if he's going to wear the mask the whole time, if it's going to be just the mask when he enters the ring.
He's kind of a handsome dude. I don't think they'd make him wrestle in that mask, because I think if they were going to make him wrestle in the mask, why show who he is?
Yeah,
he's a handsome man. He's a handsome dude. So he's a handsome dude, and they showed his face. Like, I feel like he'll wear the mask like an entrance type deal, like that, and then taking it off to have the match.
I believe he's going to be billed as like the Bone Soldier. Taiji Ishimori comes out with the mask during the entrance, takes it off, wrestles.
Right.
I mean, maybe he'll wear it for some time. Maybe it'll be like Taichi, like where Taichi rips the pants off. Maybe it'll be like a deal where, like, in the middle of the match, he rips the mask off, and then the crowd, So I mean, we'll see how that goes. But I mean, I think a very impactful introduction for the character, and
I liked it.
Or what he's going to be getting into in the coming shows after we finish this rundown. So we'll go to the 7th match right now, and this is, again, as we discussed, the story of the weekend. Bullet Club versus Bullet Club on the 5th anniversary. So that was the Bullet Club team of Cody, Hangman Page, Marty Scurll, and the Young Bucks versus the Bullet Club team of Kenny Omega, Kota Ibushi, Bad Luck Fale, Tama Tonga, and Tonga Loa, the Gorillas of Destiny. And again, the Omega team all comes out in those 5th anniversary Bullet Club kimonos. Cody is pissed because he didn't get one, supposedly, even though Cody's name is on the kimono, because on the bottom of the kimono they have the roster. Basically, everybody that's ever been in the Bullet Club, including Peter, Yujiro's sometime valet. She's actually name checked as a member of Bullet Club. So I thought that was cool. So basically, the story of the match again, like we discussed the night before, you're getting Marty Scurll versus Fale, the big guy. The big guy versus the small guy. And they're basically teasing the Hogan versus Andre WrestleMania 3 spot. Like the idea that Marty is going to try to body slam Bad Luck Fale, and just how impossible that feat is going to be. And during the match, Marty goes to slam Fale. He kind of hulks up and he's going to slam Fale. And then basically, like as it happens in WrestleMania 3 between Hogan and Andre, he goes to slam Fale, but Fale falls on top of Marty, and then Fale gets the 1, 2, 3 and gets the win immediately. So it's basically a comedy spot. I thought it was hilarious. As a fan, like I started watching back then. As a fan, I thought it was a great spot. And after the match, Kenny chases Cody after the bell, and they both run out to the back. And that leaves the rest of the team, all of Bullet Club, I believe. You get Chase and Yujiro come in, and then basically the rest of the group is in the ring, and they all kind of decide to let bygones be bygones, and you get the rest of the Bullet Club, without Kenny and Cody who have left, doing a group 2 sweep. So, I mean, you saw, basically the Bullet Club's made up, but you still are preserving the Kenny versus Cody storyline. Besides the Bullet Club versus Bullet Club, the other main storyline of the weekend was Suzuki Gun versus Los Ingobernables de Japón. So you're getting, again, Suzuki, Minoru Suzuki, Lance Archer, Davey Boy Smith Jr., Kanemaru, Desperado versus Los Ingobernables de Japón, which is Tetsuya Naito, Evil, Sonata, Bushi, and Hiromu. Again, like Naito's not bringing out the belt, and basically, it's kind of a quick match, and Naito hits the Destino on Kanemaru for the win. And this is basically goes how you expect it to go. Suzuki Gun's pissed off, so the young boys catch their wrath. A bunch of young boys get beat up. Los Ingobernables de Japón are celebrating, and basically the rest of Los Ingobernables de Japón, they leave after the match, and Naito's just in the ring. And then when Naito goes to leave the ring, they're playing his music, everyone's cheering him, and then a masked man jumps over the barrier from the crowd. He's wearing a Bushi mask, and he starts just beating the crap out of Naito, throws him back in the ring, rips the mask off. Takes him a while to rip the mask off, but once he gets the mask off, it's Chris Jericho. He puts a code breaker on Naito. He
couldn't get the mask off because he had the scarf on under the disguise. So it got all tangled up.
Well, if you have like a legit like Mexican lucha libre mask, like like they have like the laces on the back, but they also have kind of like this inner lace underneath the chin, so you can't just pull the mask up like that. So I think he had that on there in case maybe a fan tried to yank the mask off or something. So that's where the difficulty comes from. So he hits the code breaker. The crowd's chanting Y2J. Jericho grabs the ring bell and he just like smacks Naito right in the head. And this, that
is a serious ring bell that they have in New Japan too. That ring bell was it's no joke.
It's a serious ring bell, and I don't know if it's Hardway. I don't know if it's a blade job. I mean, if it's a blade job, they did it perfectly because he hit him, and then the blood started to like gush off of Naito's head to Austin versus Bret Hart level of like just blood on Naito's face.
It was.
And then Naito basically like Jericho just gets the beat down, and they finally pull him off, and they're pulling him out of the ring, and they're going to bring a stretcher in to get Naito out of there. Naito says, "Fuck this." He tosses the stretcher out, and he basically, walks out under his own power. Puts his little baseball cap on, but his face is just a crimson mask, kind of old school 1980s crimson mask, like NWA style. And then, we find out later on Instagram that Jericho basically ran out of the building into a waiting taxi cab and then just hauled ass out of there after putting the beat down on Naito. What did you think of this, Tony?
Well, I liked, I thought the match was fine. I think the pairing of Naito and Jericho is good. I'm sure their match that we're eventually going to get is going to be great. But I did not like this. I thought it made I liked this as far as Jericho attacking Naito, but I thought it made LIJ, Los Ingobernables, look like a bunch of wieners. Like they're just standing there. Here's their leader who's getting his head smashed in with a ring bell by this interloper. And they're just standing there. They're all kind of like the young boys are holding Jericho back, and, Sonata and Evil are just standing there. Here's your tag champs. They're just standing there. Naito's bleeding his head. I'm like, they could have done something and had the young boys holding, LIJ back, and that's why Jericho's able to get at Naito or something like that. Like, I just thought, I thought it would. I thought they could have protected LIJ a little bit better. They're supposed to be this big bad stable that's, the killers, and they're the tag champs, and they're going to kick everybody's asses. And Sonata's he's challenged for the heavyweight title. Takahashi's, challenging for the junior title. These are top guys in these divisions here, and they're just doing nothing while Naito's getting clobbered on the ground, but I like the first angle was real good, and I'm sure the match is going to be good. I just didn't like that part of this one. And I've come to expect New Japan to have these protective workings for their guys, kind of a little more nailed down.
I can definitely see where you're coming from there. Again, but like if you're building a stable and the whole ethos behind your stable is that like none of us give a fuck. I mean, it's the point of just like everyone's too tranquilo and everyone's just kind of like, because one, like you had to kind of like artificially get the rest of the faction out of there before Naito before Y2J jumped the barrier and started doing the beatdown. So like he's doing the beatdown for a little bit before LIJ comes back out. But you're right, they're kind of in the background, kind of inert, like they're not doing
just
anything.
Standing there. Yeah. I did like. I will say though that I did like at the end where Naito went afterwards and shoved the dude and got his hat back and just maintained his tranquilo afterwards, like whatever, like this guy's got nothing on me, and walked out under his own power. I did think it ended well, even if I didn't necessarily like the whole thing of it.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I said, I could see your point. I mean, me personally, I liked it. I liked the whole deal. I mean, once you explained the way you thought about it, I could see what you're saying. But regardless, we have teased a Naito versus Jericho match. We're going to get that, fairly soon. And that was your Wrestling Dontaku 2018 card. Any other final thoughts on Dontaku 2018 Night 2? Tony?
No, I don't have anything to add to it. I mean, I thought the singles matches, just what we've said before, the top matches were good, and the tag matches were, the Bullet Club storyline through the tag matches was the interesting thing there. So, no.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, I thought it was both nights were good. I mean, yeah, they could have just done one night and done a huge super card, but I thought the featured matches were great. I always enjoy the undercard matches, and I mean, obviously if you're gonna go and you want to just know like what are the matches I have to see, go see the last two matches for each night. That's basically what you have to see, or what I would say, go out and search out, and that's it for Wrestling Dontaku 2018. So we're gonna go over some of the shows that we're leading up to now. The next tour is going to be the Best of the Super Juniors 25. That is like it sounds, it's a tournament for the junior heavyweights, and it'll be the standard junior heavyweight roster of New Japan Pro Wrestling, and they will bring in other wrestlers from outside of wrestling, so like the Ring of Honor guys, CMLL guys. Those are the two companies that have like working relationships with New Japan Pro Wrestling. And the winner is going to get a match for the going to get a title match for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight title. So they've just recently announced the roster for the best of the Super Juniors, and we're going to go over that now. So there's the two blocks. There's A block. There's B block. The A block is Tiger Mask, who is in his 17th consecutive best of the Super Juniors. He won the best of the Super Juniors in 2004 and in 2005. Next up, you have ACH, who kind of up until recently, they've been a American Indies like a mainstay. I know he's been doing some more work in Japan now. This is his second consecutive best of the Super Juniors. Then we get Flip Gordon. If you watch Being the Elite or you're a Ring of Honor fan, that's where you'll know Flip Gordon from. And this is going to be his debut. This is his first best of the Super Juniors. Also, Will Ospreay, the current IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champion. This is his third consecutive Best of the Super Juniors. He was also the 2016 Best of the Junior. He's the 2016 Best of the Super Juniors winner. Then Yo from Roppongi 3K. This is his second entry, but it's his first entry in 2 years. So he's had a 2-year gap between entries. And then you have the new Bone Soldier, Taiji Ishimori, who we discussed earlier. This is his second entry in the Best of the Super Juniors, but it's his first entry in 8 years. So it looks like Gato has maybe had his eye on Taiji Ishimori for a while. Then you have Yoshinobu Kanemaru from Suzuki Gun. He's the guy who carries around the bottle of whiskey and spits the whiskey in people's face. That's his second consecutive Best of the Super Juniors. And then rounding out the A block, you get Bushi from Los Ingobernables de Japón. This is his sixth entry, but his third consecutive entry into the Best of the Super Juniors. And then as far as the B block goes, you have Kushida, which for a long time Kushida's been the ace of the junior division in New Japan. This is his 9th consecutive entry into the Best of the Super Juniors. He has also won both in 2015 and 2017. You have Ryusuke Taguchi, the Funky Weapon. He is his 15th entry, his 13th consecutive entry. And believe it or not, Ryusuke Taguchi actually won the Best of the Super Juniors in 2012. And now next we have the debuting Chris Sabin. So American fans, you're going to know Chris Sabin from Ring of Honor, part of the Motor City Machine Guns with Alex Shelley. Actually, kind of surprising that Alex Shelley's not showing up in this, because Alex Shelley used to be a New Japan mainstay. He one of the time splitters with Kushida, but so we're getting Chris Sabin.
Alex Shelley's not a former TNA heavyweight champion.
I didn't want to bring up Chris Sabin's former TNA heavyweight championship. He did have we'll call it a cup of coffee with TNA heavyweight belt, and did not go well, in my opinion. It just seems like it wasn't like the spot for him. But there's a lot of people excited to see Chris Sabin in there, and I'm always excited to see a guy get a shot in there. I remember when AJ Styles went over to New Japan, I was kind of terrified for him, to be honest, because I liked him from TNA, but I was like, man, can he step up and be that top level guy? And he stepped up. So maybe Chris Sabin can step up and be a top level guy there, but this is going to be his debut over in the Best of the Super Juniors. So I'm excited to see that. We also got in the B block Dragon Lee from CMLL. The Dragon Lee, he had a storied rivalry in CMLL with Hiromu Takahashi when Hiromu Takahashi was a masked wrestler, and he went under the name Kamatachi. It's Kamatachi is the name he went under. But they've had matches with Hiromu under the mask and Hiromu out of the mask, and these guys go hard. I'm talking like RVD versus Jerry Lynn level hard. Like this is like they're trying to kill each other. They're doing like sunset flip power bombs from the apron to the ground. Just these guys. They just put it they put it all out there. It's amazing when these two guys get in the match. And Dragon Lee is just a great luchador, man. Like if you're going to pick one guy from CMLL to be in your junior heavyweight tournament, Dragon Lee's the guy. I mean, bar none, that's the guy I'm picking from CMLL, and that's the guy they picked here. And next up, we got Marty Scurll, his second consecutive Best of the Super Juniors. We also have El Desperado from Suzuki Gun, his third entry in the Best of the Super Juniors, but his second consecutive entry. And then the aforementioned Hiromu Takahashi, his fourth entry in the tournament, and his second consecutive entry in the tournament. And then Sho from Roppongi 3K. This is his debut in the Best of the Super Juniors. And me personally, looking at these blocks, of course, I'm expecting Taiji Ishimori to have a tremendous showing. But I think the guys to really look out for here, Bushi. I wouldn't be surprised to see Bushi win. I wouldn't be surprised to see Marty Scurll win. And to be honest, Sho from Roppongi 3K. Again, Sho is the guy that wears the gold. I wouldn't be surprised to see Sho in the kind of final four, maybe even winning the thing. But if I got to put my money on somebody, I think maybe I got to go Marty Scurll. I mean, what do you think in this Best of the Super Juniors, Tony?
I really don't know. I've never actually followed a Best of the Super Juniors before. I've always been aware of the tournament, and then the eventual winner and that sort of thing. But I've never actually followed the tournament all the way through. So, I mean, they got some big names in here. I think my pick was Kushida, but I think at the time I was unaware that Kushida won it actually last year.
All right, so Kushida, there's kind of been rumblings that Kushida might be moving up to heavyweight, especially with like the Young Bucks moving up to heavyweight. And you've kind of got like an older generation of guys moving up to heavyweight. So I could see that happening. It might not happen. Maybe he stays down and he could win again. I'm expecting a strong showing either way.
Well, I thought he would win as like the final, like he wins it. And then because I'd heard those same rumblings that he was moving up and that he'd been down as a junior for quite a while and that this would be him moving up. And I thought this would be their way to he wins this thing.
Yeah, that's possible.
Exits
out. They've kind of been telling this kind of long-term story between Marty Scurll and Will Ospreay. So I could maybe see them going back to that. But like I said, Bushi, maybe they want to build him up, because he's kind of been, Hiromu's been the guy that's been the junior heavyweight dude in LIJ, and maybe it's Bushi's time to move up, and then maybe I see like maybe they're maybe a little higher on Sho in Roppongi 3K other than over Yo. So I mean, to me, I'm kind of leaning Marty Scurll. Other things to note is this is actually going to be the first Best of the Super Juniors without Jushin Thunder Liger. The last Best of the Super Juniors was the last go around for Jushin Thunder Liger. So I still expect them to be on the tour, maybe in those early matches. But this is it's kind of a sad day not to see Jushin Thunder Liger in the Best of the Super Juniors. But regardless, looks like it's going to be a really good tournament. I'm excited. I mean, the talent is.
I'm really looking forward to actually following it this year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with Taiji Ishimori coming in as like this kind of unknown quantity to in a certain respect, and then getting Yo and Sho in there, and maybe you might get a Yo and Sho singles match. I mean, who knows how that's going to go? But yeah, should be a great Best of the Super Juniors, so I really look forward to it. So announced matches for Dominion coming up in June. You got Okada versus Omega. We talked about earlier in the show. You got your no time limit, 2 out of 3 falls. I mean, the highest expectations for that match. I mean, there can be no higher expectation. You got literally, if you're gonna make a list of or any kind of argument for who the current best wrestler in the world is, Number 1 and number 2 are Okada and Omega. I mean, it depends on who you are, what your tastes are, like what, order you put them in. But if you're putting anybody else besides those two in, it's probably somebody else on the New Japan, roster. I mean, maybe there's a couple guys in WWE you could put in there, but those are it. That's it. Those are the two best wrestlers in the world doing a no time limit match, 2 out of 3 falls. So how do you feel about that match? I mean, who do you think's going to win that one, Tony?
Oh, I want Kenny to win. I wanted Kenny to beat Okada when he won the G1. Like, I wanted Kenny to win. I wanted Naito to beat Okada at Wrestle Kingdom. Like, I want Okada to lose. I love the long storyline of the long-term storytelling of New Japan and all of that, and they tell these stories over the years, and they're so, we've talked about with the Tanahashi rivalry and all that, these long-term stories and building on the bookings and things. But it's like, man, I almost, like I said, I can't take the challenger seriously anymore. So I want Kenny to beat him. I'm in Camp Kenny. I want him to win. I thought he should have beat him a long time ago, and I'm all in for this. And I hope that he, in this 2 out of 3 falls, no time limit thing, that Kenny's able to finally get it done. And then we can start seeing some of these newer matches. You know what I mean? Like, I like that Okada, but it's kind of like a new guy coming into a promotion almost in New Japan, where a new guy becomes a champion, and now you have all these other matches with the new challengers that Okada already beat. Now you can have Kenny versus Naito, Kenny versus Sonata, Kenny versus, and run through that whole list that Okada's already beat again, with Kenny as the champion. And Kenny's a dynamic enough performer to have good matches with all those guys, just like Okada did. So you get a whole run out of it.
So yeah, I'm looking at this, and I'm firmly behind Omega. I mean, you look at Okada; he's got all the records. He's had the belt the longest. He's had the most title defenses. How long does it go? I mean, unless you're bringing in new wrestlers who aren't in the promotion, which there's really nobody outside of New Japan Pro Wrestling that you can bring in, that's not locked up under contract by another promotion or WWE. Unless they somehow know that we're going to get Daniel Bryan in a couple of months, which isn't going to happen, and CM Punk, which isn't going to happen.
And my support for Kenny in this match doesn't come from like any sort of like knock on Okada at all, because I think Okada is the best wrestler in the world for my money. But I think it's time for him to get beat. It's time for him to lose. Like, because they might pull some shit and, screw around, and he'll hold it till Wrestle Kingdom so he can beat it at Wrestle Kingdom. It's like, man, no, it's time. Like, in my opinion, it's time for somebody to beat him, and I hope it's Kenny.
Yeah, and the way I look at this is twofold. One, the way Gato generally works is his top star isn't losing at Wrestle Kingdom. So if Okada's got the belt, he's not losing the belt at Wrestle Kingdom. So he can lose the belt at Dominion, and then he can win the belt back at Wrestle Kingdom. Or he can win it back and defend it at Wrestle Kingdom. But he's not going to lose it at Wrestle Kingdom. And the other way I look at this is every other match with Okada and Omega was the Rainmaker versus the Cleaner. But this is the Rainmaker versus the best bout machine, Kenny Omega. This isn't the Cleaner Kenny Omega. This is full babyface Kenny Omega. And maybe that's the jump he needed to make to win the match. And I mean, 2 out of 3 falls. I'm going to be fully invested in Omega. I'm not going to be surprised if Okada wins. I think regardless, we're looking at a 6-star match. But we'll move on now. And the other match, which will undoubtedly be the probably the semifinal of Dominion, is of course Naito versus Jericho. And they're initially advertising this as being for the IWGP Intercontinental Championship.
Oh, really?
That's what I've read so far online. I don't know if that's gonna, because the match versus Omega wasn't for the U.S. title, but this one so far has been advertised as an IC match, which leads me a couple different ways. Jericho lost against Omega. But do you just keep bringing Jericho in to lose the guys, or do you actually give him a win? And then you also have the added story of Naito not wanting the Intercontinental belt, and we don't know what kind of deal Jericho currently has with New Japan Pro Wrestling. So, I mean, this really could go either way. I mean, personally, if I'm putting money, I mean, you got to put your money on Naito. But what do you think of Naito and Jericho?
I think the match is going to be good, but I hadn't heard that it was going to be for the Intercontinental belt. But I don't think, though, I really can't see Jericho winning. I mean, I think he's at the point where it doesn't matter if he loses to.
Oh, he doesn't need to win.
Yeah, no, he doesn't need to win. So I don't think there's any need to like keep him strong because he gets his, he almost gets his strength by his absence. He comes in, he makes an impactful, comeback or, an attack on just like this. Makes an impactful comeback, attacks Naito, and then he goes away again. So hang on.
I mean, Jericho really has like kind of, positioned himself as like this kind of true independent wrestler. Like he shows up in Saudi Arabia for WWE, or he shows up in the Royal Rumble, and now he's showing up in New Japan. But I mean, I will say the more surprising thing is to have him win the belt. Like that would be crazy if Jericho won that belt. It would be like nobody would see it coming.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, but I also don't think my point being before is that I don't think that he's going to do anything to upset the apple cart with WWE. It's nice that he's making his money, he's doing his podcasts, his cruises, and he's going to New Japan and he's doing all that stuff. But WWE is where he's cashing his biggest checks.
And but again, like I think Vince McMahon like has zero idea of what's going on outside of America. I think he's just Japan,
but that's what I mean. So if he went to Japan, that's cool. Like, and he could do that over there. But like to become their champion and be like, oh, I'm the champion, even if he loses it. I think that might be one step too far. But I mean, it wouldn't. They could do it, but I don't think he would go for that.
Yeah.
I think he'd be like, no, I don't need it.
Yeah, I mean, we both agree he doesn't need it. I think we're both saying Naito's the smart money on that one. You would agree on that?
Yeah, but I wonder if they're going to end up doing some sort of, kind of like with the Kenny match where they did like a no DQ violent brawl all around. Like I think there could be a lot of.
Well, they got to work around a little bit. Like he's not going to do he's not doing a 5-star classic.
No, but that's where I'm almost excited to where if it wasn't for the belt, they could do something because I feel like that Naito I don't give a fuck Tranquilo character could almost translate to that. Not hardcore, I guess, per se, but that real brawling around, tables and chairs and all that kind of stuff. It can almost translate to that. There can be some funny, interesting sort of spots they could do, cool spots with that in that kind of a match together.
I'm definitely very excited to see this match. But we'll move on. So also announced for Dominion, you got the Young Bucks challenging for the IWGP Heavyweight Tag Team Championships against the champions, Evil and Sonata.
The Bucks are big now.
I mean, hey man, they're heavyweights, dude. They're big in Japan. I mean, what are you thinking? I mean, do you see the Young Bucks going over against Evil and Sonata?
I hope so. I mean, I like them. I like Sonata. I don't, Evil's not my favorite wrestler in the world. I think Sonata's as cool as the other side of the pillow. So I dig him. But I like the Bucks. It took me a long time to warm up to the Bucks. I did not like them for the longest time, and I just didn't appreciate that how good they actually are. I just didn't have an appreciation for them. And it took me a while to develop that, but I think they should win the belts and become the champions because I feel like they can have those dynamic matches with all pairings in New Japan. And New Japan brings in and has a lot of interesting tag teams and I feel like the Bucks can really work some good matches with them. But I do wonder about though that if they do win the belts over there, if they they run hard, man. They run hard. They're in high demand for dates, and if they're the champions, having those types of championship matches.
The other thing to consider is that they just won the Never 6-man tags. So are they going to give them both belts? I mean, I'll be rooting for the Bucks. I've been a Bucks fan since I first went to my first PWG show. I love them, but I love Evil and Sonata too. I think it'll be an interesting mesh of styles. But we'll see how the Young Bucks hang with the big boys. Like that's where the big boys play, huh? Look at the adjective, play. Anyway, we'll move into the next match. Juice Robinson versus Jay White for the IWGP US title. I mean, looking at this, I mean, Juice, he's really come a long way in New Japan, especially watching him be like just jobber to the stars in NXT. as C.J. Parker. I mean, I'm a big Juice guy. I think he's great. I hope he can win. I mean, personally, I think with the way they've been pushing Jay White, I don't think Jay White's losing this belt just yet. So I think Juice will have a good showing, but I think Jay White's keeping this belt.
I 100% agree.
Yeah. All right. So we'll move on to the never openweight title. Hiroki Goto, the champion, versus Big Mike, Michael Elgin, and Tai Chi. Yeah. Big Mike, he's persona non grata in America, but that doesn't seem to translate that much to Japan unless you get a bunch of Americans in the crowd like they had at Wrestle Kingdom. And then you get Tai Chi, who's also like a newly crowned heavyweight. You know, he's no longer a junior. He is a heavyweight, but he's still wearing the junior heavyweight trunks. He's got the extra medium trunks. He needs to move up a size on those bad boys. But they're all fighting for the never openweight title. I mean, you don't get a lot of three-ways in New Japan. A lot of triple threats. I mean, who do you think is coming across on this one, Tony?
I'm picking Goto.
Then Goto to retain.
Yeah.
I mean, I would love to see Tai Chi sneak out one, man. I would love to see Tai Chi sneak out with this belt. Tai Chi's kind of grown on me. I mean, he's got that kind of super. He's like a pure heel. He's got that go home heat where everyone's chanting Tai Chi go home. But you've seen recently where people are chanting like for Tai Chi, and it's kind of crazy. But I always love his little, when he rips the pants off spot. To me, I'm surprised you don't see that you haven't seen somebody steal that gimmick in the WWE yet. So I mean, this could go either way. I mean, yeah, you're right, and probably Goto will retain, but I'd be happy to see Tai Chi take that bad boy. And then we'll move on here. Rey Mysterio Jr. has been advertised as having a special participation. The rumors are that he's actually going to have a match, but you can't announce the match because of the Best of the Super Junior tournament. So you don't want to say like, hey, he's facing this guy in the Best of the Super Junior tournament, because that will kind of like give it away that this guy's gonna lose the tournament. So they're just saying he's having a special participation, and it might also mean that he's not having a match. We're not sure yet.
That's partly why I'm not picking Marty Scurll to win the tournament, is because of the angle they ran at Strong Style Evolved, where Scurll took Mysterio's mask. Maybe Ray makes a surprise run in during the Super Juniors, costs Marty his shot at the finals or whatever. Yeah, and that leads to their setup match for Dominion.
Which also was a hilarious spot to me because, I distinctly remember a few years in WCW where Ray wasn't wearing a mask, and I know exactly what his face looks like.
Yeah, well, a simple Google search. He's a handsome man.
Yeah, I mean, I do appreciate that the entire wrestling fandom has agreed to forget that Mysterio ever lost his mask. So yeah. I did like that. And
it's one of those Men in Black flashers, neuralizers.
Neuralized everybody. I did, but thank you for telling me that, because I might change my pick for the Best of the Super Junior now that you mention it. So Marty Scurll at Strong Style Evolved attacked Rey Mysterio, and but also Will Ospreay has challenged, at that same event challenged Rey Mysterio. He said, "Hey, I'm the best. I'm the champ. You need to fight me. You don't need to."
And at that event, he was scheduled to wrestle Jushin Thunder Liger. So maybe we get the Liger Liger Mysterio match.
We could get the Liger Mysterio. I still think maybe they want to do that in America. So I would expect that to happen at the G1 special at the Cow Palace in San Francisco. And then the other match that's going to happen for sure at Dominion is that Will Ospreay, who is the current IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champion, is going to face the Best of the Super Juniors 25 winner. Caveat, of course, Ospreay is in the Best of the Super Juniors 25, so if the champion wins, he gets to pick his opponent, but the champion generally doesn't win, so it'll probably be somebody else winning. So like I said, Bushi, Marty Scurll, Show. I mean, those are the guys you can expect to maybe see win. So I mean, maybe I'm even leaning a little closer to Bushi as the winner there. But so yeah. So I mean, who are you thinking Ospreay is gonna face in the Dominion?
Well, like I said, my official pick was Kushida, but okay. It could be Takahashi. I think he's another one. He was my second pick. But and again, for the same reason as Kushida, because I think he's another one that I've heard rumors that they've been thinking about moving up. Correct?
Sorry, say that again.
There's been rumors of Takahashi moving up to heavyweight as well. Correct?
I don't know if I've heard that rumor. I think Hiromu, they're kind of leaving there.
I thought I heard because he'd been in there he'd been down in the juniors for a while.
I mean, he's been down there for a while, but he's had that kind of classic back and forth with Dragon Lee. I mean, maybe if they're deciding that Bushi is going to be like the main like junior heavyweight of Los Ingobernables, maybe they could, but I don't think I've heard that specifically. So you're saying Kushida? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, he was my pick. And I mean, otherwise I would have picked Scurll, but I just think with the Rey Mysterio thing looming out there that it's not going to be him.
Yeah,
it's a bigger match.
I think you're onto something there. So those are all the matches that we've had announced for Dominion. So I mean, if you are a New Japan Pro Wrestling fan, that's where we're at there. I mean, you've got the Best of the Super Juniors coming up, and then after that in June, you're looking at the Dominion card. So you've got a lot of like really good New Japan Pro Wrestling action headed your way. So if you've been watching on Access TV or you know you've had your friends telling you about New Japan Pro Wrestling, now's the time, man. Go get your go sign up for New Japan go sign up for NJPWWorld.com. That's the New Japan Pro Wrestling equivalent of the WWE Network. You know, they're doing their $9.99 yen, which actually it's $9.99 yen a month, which is less than $10 or less than $9.99 American dollars a month that the WWE Network is charging due to the exchange rate. So that's the end of the show, man. We've been through everything. I want to thank everyone for joining us on this episode of Radio Strong Style. If you want to follow us on Instagram, you can go to at Radio Strong Style on Instagram. On Twitter, we're going to be at R Strong Style. That's the letter R and the word Strong Style. Radio Strong Style was a little too long for Twitter, so at R Strong Style if you want to hit us up there. If you want to shoot us an email, you can go to radiostrongstyle@gmail.com. You can tell us how much you love us and how great of a show we just put on for you, and you know we're always happy to read love letters or even a hate mail too, you know,
or hate mail.
Yeah, I mean I get plenty of that just in my day-to-day life, so we're all good there. And that's the end of the show. So Tony, you got any parting words for the people?
This was a lot of fun, man. I enjoyed myself. So thanks for having me. We'll talk to you next time.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this has been Radio Strong Style. We want to thank you for joining us, and I want to wish you a good night, and we will see you next time.